Hey Sunrise, it's Andrew here with your small group questions for this week as we jump into Genesis chapter 39 as we continue in the Joseph narrative. So we're coming back to the life of Joseph here, and now we see him in Egypt. So as you work through this text, you're going to see Joseph prosper in the midst of suffering. God is with him. So we begin very much at the beginning that Joseph is now seen as having grown into a successful man compared to chapter 37, where he is introduced to us as a boy with his brothers. What's the significance of that change? So how does that show us a progression of time? But also, how does that show us a progression of Joseph? How is he beginning to change as this text unfolds? And what is the source of his success in this text? So as you think about those things, begin to see how God is at work in Joseph's life. And so that's what we begin to unpack. So how is the Lord seen in this text? How is he made much of through Joseph's life? So we see how Potiphar's house is blessed. And we also see within this overarching theme of even that little subtle hint to the covenant blessings being poured out as God shows his steadfast love. So how do all of these things begin to factor into our understanding of Joseph and what God is doing in his life right here at the beginning of his time in Egypt? So as you begin to think about these things, you then also see the transition to Potiphar's wife, that it highlights the fact that Joseph is a man who is handsome and appealing. So what do we make then of the interactions between Potiphar's wife and Joseph? And again, his pronouncement towards her of why he will not go with her. So specifically, again, that he will not commit wickedness against God. So even in hearing that, how does this have to do with being a sin against God? And again, we continue to see him pursued and continually pushing her away. Again, so how we see Joseph play together in his faithfulness to God and to Potiphar in this story. And then ultimately we see how the story ends with the false accusation, the significance of the robe being left behind. Again, we're going to have another robe motive here in our text, leading us to the end where he is thrown into prison, but even in suffering and being thrown into another pit. So one robe in a pit, a second robe in a pit. This one now, we again see God's hand with him. So how do we see the Lord with him in his suffering? And again, continuing to unpack this, how God is with us through our suffering, and how God is the one who brings success, and how God is the one who is faithful through it all. So hopefully you'll spend some time in the text unpacking the work of the Lord in the life of Joseph, the encouragement that we have through the life of Joseph. And again, as we hear the word proclaimed and work it out in our small groups, I hope that you'll really be able to continue to glean the hope that we have in Christ through these narratives. Can't wait to worship with you guys on Sunday. See you soon.